Hello and good morning, everybody. Please just wait a moment here while we figure out a couple tech issues, trying to get our moderator online. Let's see. All right, great. All right, I'll give everyone just a couple more minutes to fill in here before we get started, but thank you all for joining us. And happy Earth Month, everyone, of course. The reason we're all here on this webinar today.
Yeah, happy Earth Month. It's a great capstone to a really impactful month.
All right, great. Well, it looks like we have a good amount of people joined here already. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a Green Sports Alliance webinar. For anyone getting to know the Alliance, we are a membership-driven organization. We exist to leverage the power of sports to promote healthy, sustainable communities where we live, work, and play. And if you're interested in becoming a member, you can email me at mika@greensportsalliance.org. I'll put that in the chat as well. And I'm also going to share my screen briefly. Before I hand it over to our panelists, I wanted to give a few updates about the 2025 Summit in Miami. First, to thank you all for joining us today, I'd like to give you the Friends and Family discount code to register. I'll put that code in the chat as well. That's FRIEND10. And if you're interested in getting some event planning experience with us, you can fill out the form to volunteer with us. I'll put that in the chat as well. Feel free to pass that along to your friends and colleagues, students, or anyone you think would be interested. The form closes next week, so definitely make sure, especially for college students, it's a good opportunity to get some experience, and it comes with that free pass to the summit, so they can come in and check out some of the programming as well. And then finally, on the summit, if you're planning on attending, don't forget to get your intercontinental room block. We have limited spots available at our discounted price, so make sure to lock your stay in there. And then quick reminder, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll be sure to answer them at the end. But today we'll be in celebration of Earth Month, discussing preparations for the FIFA World Cup as a sustainability-driven venue and fan. So from there, I'll pass it on to Jeremy with the Stadium Managers Association, who will be moderating today's webinar.
Thank you, Mika. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's April 30th, the last day of Earth Month, so nothing like a webinar to conclude it. And it kind of comes at an interesting time because, we're looking ahead to 2026, and there's some incredibly exciting events coming up in 2026, the biggest being, the World Cup. So with this webinar, we're collaborating with BC Place, earthday.org, and Gillette Stadium to discuss how stadiums and event organizers can prepare for these massive events with sustainability in mind. Kind of throughout this session, we'll cover everything from waste management, energy use, fan engagement, LEED certification, and how the World Cup is influencing those changes. So we'll get started right away. I'm happy to introduce our today's panelists. We have Dina Champa with Gillette Stadium. We have Rami Nassar with BC Place, and we have Evan Raskin with earthday.org. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves and give a little brief overview about themselves. So we'll start off with Dina.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, everybody. I'm Dina Champa. I'm the Energy, Water, and Waste Administrator at Craft Sports Entertainment, so Gillette Stadium. Happy to be here and talk with you all today. Thanks.
Rami.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm Rami Nassar, the Manager for Energy and Sustainability with BC PAFCO, the owner and operator of BC Place.
And Evan.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Evan Raskin. I'm the National Campaign Manager for earthday.org. Hope you're all having a wonderful last day of Earth Month. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, everyone. So like I said, we'll dive right in. Everyone, please submit any questions in the chat and we'll address them later in the webinar, but I'm going to kind of get us kicked off. And let's start off with a little bit of context as the World Cup and other sporting events approach. There's a lot of opportunity for stadiums to adopt practices that meet sustainability standards, engage fans in meaningful ways. So let's start with Dina. I'd love for you to share a little bit about Gillette Stadium's journey towards sustainability, particularly in preparing for the World Cup, and kind of what advice would you give a venue going through the lead O&M process?
Yeah, definitely. For the lead O&M process, one big piece of advice that I would stress is to really dial in the occupancy calculator really early on in the process with the U.S. Green Building Council. That's a really key piece of the puzzle of the LEED certification, especially as all venues are different. No two stadiums or venues are the same. Different capacities, different numbers of ticketed events, non-ticketed events, functions throughout the year, and over different seasons. So it's really important to kind of get that dialed in early on, because that's kind of really the foundation for getting a lot of other LEED credits throughout the process. But then overall, just really ensuring that you maintain communication channels with the U.S. Green Building Council throughout the process, because they have a great platform to be able to ask questions back and forth. So just, making sure to build in the time for those questions and answers from either side there.
I can only imagine all that goes into getting that occupancy calculator. So I can imagine the early start is needed. So kind of beyond the lead process for Gillette, what other things have you been doing for preparing for the World Cup in terms of sustainability?
Definitely. So the big thing that we've been working on over the past year, we've undergone the ISO 2012-1 certification. That's the Sustainable Event Management System certification. And while it wasn't a FIFA host venue requirement like the LEED certification was, we found it really beneficial to pursue both of them kind of in tandem, because they kind of help reinforce each other. And it really helps, the certification really helps provide a framework for our sustainability program leading into FIFA, but then also thinking beyond. So as part of the process of going through the certification, we created a sustainability policy for the stadium, and then as part of that policy, defined 6 key pillars to help guide us going forward, and then identified key targets and milestones that we want to achieve over the next few years under each of those supporting pillars. So that's been a really great way that we've grown and kind of helped codify our sustainability program here at the stadium. And as part of the ISO process and getting the certification and everything, we've created an interdepartmental green team, and that's really helped with FIFA, but then also just sustainability overall, FIFA sustainability and sustainability overall, to advance a lot of our goals and targets and objectives. So for example, we have an event day commuter rail train, because we have a train station right adjacent to our stadium. So we've been working with, or the team has been working to see how we can expand that for events like FIFA. We've been really dialing into our waste management practices and seeing how we can get everything all teed up and ready to go for all the FIFA matches, especially because we have so many back-to-back, and making sure the flow is good there. And thinking about FIFA bringing in different sponsors and different concessions items when it comes to sponsorships, and what waste streams those various items might go into. And then continuing to increase our energy program as well. We have natural gas fuel cells on site. We have cogeneration plants on property. We've been adding in pulse meters to our natural gas, water, and electricity meters that feed into the stadium, so we can really track the data live there. And that's helped us really hone in more on our energy and see how we can continue to become more energy efficient across events and non-event days as well. And then to quickly just speak on the fuel cells in particular, we were able to experience a 3.5-year return on investment with that program. And that accounts for factoring in the additional gas usage, but also the amount of energy that we saved. And then we were able to work with National Grid to make use of a lot of those incentives, and on the back end as well, sell renewable energy credits. So having those sales kind of all of those pieces kind of falling together helped create that great return on investment there. But yeah, overall, just really excited about having FIFA coming in 2026 and working well with the host committee, Boston Soccer 26. They have a transportation working group, and they're going to be working on creating an environmental specific working group as well. So that'll be great to work with them over the next year in preparation for the games.
Awesome. And of course, the stadium does a lot, but with a huge focus on waste management, that obviously engages the fans that are going to attend or already attending Gillette's regular events. So how has the stadium been working already to engage fans on sustainability issues?
So we've been engaging with fans both on social media platforms, but then also in person before various events in our fan zone that we call it, and really activating around Green Sports Day in the fall, and then Earth Day most recently a couple weeks ago in April. To talk about that one in particular, so we hosted a table before the Revolution. They had a match on April 19th. It was their Greener Goals match. So we were out there tabling. We had trivia questions, Earth Day stickers. Fans could write down their greener goal for the environment on this jersey that we painted, and then they could enter to win a One Planet kit that was signed by the team. So there was kind of two ways that folks could enter to win, and the fans really enjoyed it. All of the families and everybody that came over. We had a line of people at the table, so that was really cool to see everybody engaged there. And then looking ahead to FIFA, we've been in communication with the host committee and others to see how we can kind of maybe build on that and engage with fans, during the matches, but then also leading up to it, maybe at some fan zones or fan fests and things like that. In prep for the 7 matches that we'll be hosting. So excited to see what's to come.
Awesome, Dina. And your point and answer kind of lead into our next panelist, Evan. Let's talk about earthday.org, Earth Month, and kind of the relationship to sports it can have. Can you share how Earth Day's theme connects to the work being done in stadiums and how events like the World Cup can help amplify the efforts?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer that question. So earthday.org is the global organizers of Earth Day, and as such, every year we set a theme to be able to coordinate our advocacy and create a unified global movement that shows why we commemorate Earth Day every year. And this year, our theme is Our Power, Our Planet, which at its core is all about renewable energy implementation. And it's really from a perspective that is not only limited to the ways in which renewable energy is essential to solving climate change, but also the ways in which renewable energy is a fiscally responsible investment for stakeholders of all backgrounds, whether you're a homeowner or a government or even a sports stadium. In fact, we've seen stadiums really leverage renewables in certain pockets of the country. Personally, I really like the Philadelphia Eagles as far as an example of stadium sustainability using renewable energy. In fact, they are 100% powered by renewable energy, which not only eliminates a lot of their carbon emissions, but also saves the stadium over $200,000 per year on its electricity bills, being better able to invest into other areas of the business as well as into the fan culture and the teams itself. And so it's really important to note that Our Power, Our Planet is not only about renewable energy, though. It's also about people power, something that every Earth Day wouldn't be complete without. The people power of Earth Day is really within making sure that Earth Day is a moment in which we can have discussions throughout communities about what can we do not only on an individual basis to be involved in environment and climate issues, but also how can we come together as a community to make a difference that will last. And this year on Earth Day, we saw some really excellent ways in which sports communities were commemorating Earth Day. In fact, we at earthday.org, we collaborated with the Washington Nationals and SEIA, which is the Solar Energy Industries Association, the largest solar association in North America. All 3 of us together, we participated in the April 22nd Earth Day Washington Nationals game, where our creative and content chief officer did the opening announcements for the game, and SEIA's leader throughout the first pitch. And throughout the game, we also were doing Earth Day and solar education up on the Jumbotron. which really demonstrates the value of stadiums as venues for environmental education, a place that we can build knowledge and enthusiasm for sustainability. Also on Earth Day, we saw the Baltimore Ravens partner with Mr. Trash Wheel, which is the waterfront partnership of Baltimore's machine to filter litter and pollution from the Baltimore Harbor. So this machine, it's sporting a giant pair of googly eyes, and Mr. Trash Wheel has become a beloved member of the community that eats about 500 tons of trash and debris throughout the year. So on Earth Day, the Ravens announced that they had drafted Mr. Trash Wheel to the team. And so he now wears this Ravens jersey that's draped over the machine. And it's part of a 5-year partnership that is aiming to remove over 5 million pounds of litter from the harbor, while also growing 5 million oysters to improve water quality in the Baltimore Harbor and the Chesapeake watershed as a whole. And what's so cool about this to me is that Mr. Trash Wheel, this beloved member of the community, so to speak, being partnered with the Baltimore Ravens, is showing that these sports teams, as a pillar of the community, can participate in sustainability initiatives that are not only giving back to the city, but they're also setting the norm for what it means to be a fan of that team. It's showing that if you are a Ravens fan, you're also a fan of a clean and healthy Baltimore Harbor as well. It inspires sustainability action in the community. But to your point, Jeremy, about looking to events like the World Cup and the way in which international events kind of engage with sustainability action in their own ways. This reminds me of a conversation we recently had with the international Olympic community. We sat down with the IOC and members of the sustainability team for the Paris Games in particular during the Paris Olympics last July or so. And we had an interview with them that discusses their approach to achieving sustainability at this event with global participation. And what we found is that the IOC and the city of Paris saw the Olympic Games as this opportunity to not only prioritize sustainability within the Games themselves, but also as a foundation for environmental improvement within the city long term as well. Now, when it comes to the Games, the ways in which the IOC was really able to make a difference started with prioritizing minimizing construction for these projects. When you're bringing these international events to a new city, there's often a need for the expansion of infrastructure and the need for a lot of investment into supporting a larger number of fans than you would see in a typical sporting event for a city. And amazingly, the Paris Olympics were able to make sure that 95% of structures were already in place or were temporary structures, ensuring also that these venues are accessible by public transportation as well. Really key to making sure that all these visitors are able to have the most sustainable transportation experience possible. More so, the food service had half the carbon impact of a typical French meal and used about half as much plastic as was used in previous Olympic Games. Now, when it comes to long-term sustainability and the ways in which the Paris Olympics actually ended up being a benefit to the Paris community in the long term, the Olympics precipitated this earnest effort to finally clean up the River Seine, something that was long overdue. And additionally, as part of that commitment to public transportation, to eliminating the need for private vehicles, the city of Paris expanded bike infrastructure in the city by over 400 kilometers and also added over 20,000 parking spots for people to be able to actually use their bicycles to get to the stadium. And this effort to increase cycling accessibility in Paris has not only been something that really helps with sustainability at the Games, but it was also crucial to the city as it has continued to restrict the use of cars in Paris, continue to move away from that personal automobile basis of transportation in the city. Overall, the Olympics actually ended up helping the city walk away in a better position sustainably than they were before. And we'd love to see the World Cup kind of follow suit in the same way as this, not exactly annual, but ongoing sports commemoration that we see throughout the world every couple of years.
Thanks, Evan. You had mentioned collaboration with local teams like the Washington Nationals, and I have to say I'm a fan of Mr. Trashville, even here in Iowa, where SMA is based. But it's clear that Earth Days and Earth Month impact is not just about the month of April, the one day in April, but the momentum it creates. You kind of touched on that with the Olympics. So how do you see the momentum carry on through the rest of the year and beyond?
Well, I love that you asked that question because here at earthday.org, we're always saying that Earth Day is not just a day, but a movement that lasts 365 days per year. We really want to see Earth Day be a meaningful moment in the calendar, but not the only moment. It should be an opportunity to explore how environmental engagement can be a part of sports culture all year long. And we see this in certain sports communities already, such as the World Surf League, which is a fan of all things sports I'm very appreciative of. In the World Surf League, they don't just limit their environmental action to Earth Day alone. What they do is that as part of every competition, they organize volunteer events in the host location, and a majority of participating athletes actually turn out for every one of these events as well. And so, in turn, fans who are eager to meet these athletes are given that opportunity by participating as volunteers as well. And we see competition after competition, the World Surf League not only bringing entertainment and sports culture to these communities, but also leaving them with a bit of volunteer participation, something that actually gave back to the community. And this really connects with something that we think about every time that we commemorate with Earth Day is not just what can we do today, but how can we make a lasting impact in the days, weeks, months, and year that follows. In some ways, we even see Earth Day as this environmental New Year's, so to speak, in which we're not only celebrating all the progress we've made in the year behind us, but we're also resolving ourselves to improving those efforts in the year ahead as well.
And kind of lastly, Evan, I'm sure Dina and Rami, a lot of tracking success for sustainability, dashboards for energy, waste management, kind of that things. But earthday.org obviously does a lot that maybe stadiums don't. So what are some other ways to track success with sustainability campaigns?
So this is something that we look at in a really conceptual basis. As earthday.org's role as kind of the central node of all things Earth Day, what we really try to do is make sure that we're setting agendas, not only for ourselves, but also working with stakeholders of all backgrounds to make sure that they can do the same. We really look at Earth Day as this planning period. This is part of what I mean by Earth Day as an environmental New Year's, so to speak. It's this idea that as we commemorate Earth Day, we're not only trying to achieve impact right now, but also make sure that we are well positioned for that impact to continue. We see a lot of businesses, cities, and local governments and other institutions use Earth Day as a critical planning period within their ongoing sustainability efforts. We want stadiums and fans to be using Earth Day as an opportunity to set goals for what they want to accomplish between now and the next Earth Day. We see Earth Day as this vital reporting period that helps us measure progress year over year. It's honestly really well complemented by Green Sports Day as well in the fall. These two events being about 6 months apart from each other, meaning though that on Green Sports Day or on Earth Day is the perfect time to check in and make sure that you're on track to hit those annual goals. That whether it's environmental education, LEED certification, or something else, we see Earth Day as a really excellent time for you to be able to highlight all the ways in which you've achieved progress over the last year, while also making sure that you're formulating a plan for that success to continue, for you to get to the next level, and for each Earth Day to be an opportunity for us to know we're making a difference.
Thanks, Evan. And your last statement kind of leads into Rami with LEED certification over at BC Place. So, Rami, kind of love to hear your experience going through the LEED O&M certification process and maybe major changes you had to implement, stakeholders engaged, that kind of thing.
Thanks, Jeremy. And just a piece of info at the beginning. BC Place was built in 1983, and it's a 40-year-old venue, and could be one of the oldest venues for the World Cup 2026. But with the building that age, and it's not easy to move things around. There have been so many renovations that took place over the years. And one of the challenges that we faced for LEED certification was documenting these changes and documenting the operational changes that has gone with these upgrades. But without the support of your stakeholders for management, that change would not have happened. So it was more of a change management process that we needed to go through and develop the documentation pieces, and develop new policies for the stadium to operate on, and engaging with various departments to make sure that the policies can work perfectly for the stadium, not just there for certification, but more for the implementation side. And this involved not only engaging with internal teams, but also some of the overall external teams that manage both BC Place and the Vancouver Convention Center at our shared services office. So for a 40-year-old building, there's so many things that come into play. In this change process, stakeholders, as I mentioned, were involved in the process. They have, so that we can realize sustainability, how sustainability really touches every aspect of the stadium and every aspect of the organization as you go. For example, our renovations and maintenance policy introduced changes to how renovation projects are run through the stadium, which is run through different teams, not really stadium teams, but this needed the introduction of new stakeholders to the game, and understanding how these teams work together to deliver more sustainable project and more sustainable upgrade to the stadium. Also, procurement teams needed to be trained on the new certifications that are actually the certification requirements for the products coming in, any waste requirements, and changing your RFP process, the way you are dealing with your service providers or your suppliers, and asking them for more information, details on their sustainability aspects as well, so that you can accommodate for the LEED certification requirements.
Thanks. And like you mentioned, you've been going through a lot of changes in the past 40 years. So it's interesting to hear how different departments can work together. What's one creative initiative around sustainability that came out of the process that you think other venues could adopt or learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. And then realizing that stadiums are event holders, or places where events are being organized. This is where so many people are gathered at the same period of time and share the experience, share the fun and the environment there. There was also one initiative that I believe is a very good initiative to be focusing on. One of the things that we came up with that was highlighted to us is waste management at the stadium level, with a world-class event coming up, and not only just that event, for every event that comes up, there's a big opportunity to achieve a better environmental impact by changing the ways you approach your waste management practices, and also changing the offerings that you offer at the stadium with respect to that. So we have kickstarted our zero waste initiative at BC Place Stadium, aiming with a zero waste task force to reach a status by the zero waste ready status by the end of 2025, and prepare the stadium for a zero waste certification. That might not be really there for the World Cup, but this is something that's a longer term and a longer goal for the stadium to achieve. That also help drive the sustainability process within the stadium. And in addition to that, we had people, the team began thinking outside of the box and introducing new practices that drive sustainability and reducing the environmental impact from the stadium's operation and from the events perspective as well.
I'm sure eyes will be on you with your zero waste initiative, and you'll probably get some reach outs from people here asking how's it going later in the year and into next year. So I want to thank our panelists real quick, but we wanted to make sure we left lots of time for Q&A. I think that's where these webinars thrive, is being able to get the questions that you guys want to hear. So I think we have a couple, but I'm going to start with my own question real quick. I think we've maybe kind of talked about some, but as we go into 2026, we know the World Cup will bring both temporary and long-lasting changes to venues and the communities. So each panelist, maybe what's one long-term impact you see on events and sustainability practices that will come out of the World Cup, and maybe what's a temporary change. So I will let one of you duke out to take it first.
Yeah, I can get us started here. What first comes to mind is just thinking about all of um, the assets, the signage, all of the things that FIFA will be bringing. Um, that is like temporary. So not thinking of like a change, but I'm just thinking of like the temporary like things that FIFA will be having, on site for the 40 days or so that they're going to be at Gillette Stadium, and then how are we what opportunities can we have to upcycle, recycle, repurpose? How can we like give these items a second life? Is something that we're like definitely looking into. I know the host committee as well is, and just trying to see like what the opportunities are there. And then in terms of like long lasting impact, I think we're still kind of figuring that out, like talking with FIFA, but there's definitely a lot of opportunities for getting different pilots started and seeing how we can get more sustainability projects maybe launched for FIFA and then continue going forward from there.
Yeah, I think from EarthDay.org's perspective, one long-term change that we'd love to see results from the World Cup would be certainly renewable energy in regards to the Our Power, Our Planet theme. Any places in which venues can be implementing renewables as part of how they improve service to attendees during the World Cup is something that we see both being a way to mitigate costs associated with facilitating the World Cup, as well as being able to continue to reap the benefits moving forward as well. When it comes to those more temporary components, Dina, I like that you mentioned signage. I think that being very deliberate with the ways in which we communicate with fans and making sure that all of the temporary infrastructure that needs to be posted up in order to accommodate all of these participants is both done sustainably and also is done in a way that helps make the process of being a participant in these events as efficient as possible. The more easily accessible an event is, the more sustainable it is in a lot of ways. And that's something that I think that can't really be understated.
Yeah, adding to the conversation, and thank you, Evan and Dina. And I also would like to touch base there on the concept of upcycling, recycling, and whatnot. So waste management is one of the things that I believe that's coming in for the World Cup to not just for a temporary period, but I believe it's also for the venues to stay with. I see that there's a growing chat and there's growing focus on reusable cups coming up and initiatives that are coming up through various stadiums, and this would vary by city, vary by stadium as well. But there are efforts to standardize the experience between cities and make sure that there is an infrastructure that is really can accommodate such change in our waste management practices, especially with introduction of reusable cups that I believe guests also would need some education on. So that's another communication piece that might stay temporarily for the event, but the effect is going to be overlasting for times to go.
Thank you all. We do have a couple questions in. So I think this one's going to be maybe geared towards more Dina and Rami. Can you share any specific food waste prevention and diversion practices that are currently in place or preparing for in the future? And then she also asked, are also any fan-based activities you can speak of in this space?
Yeah, I can start us off. In terms of food waste at Gillette Stadium, we utilize a program called Grind to Energy. Basically, it's like a big food grinder. So all of the food scraps, kitchen scraps from back of house areas gets put into this food grinder, mixed with water, basically put into a holding tank, and then eventually sent off-site to an anaerobic digestion farm. So it's turned into fertilizer and renewable energy off-site, and the farm is able to utilize it. So that's kind of how we are able to divert a lot of our food waste there. And then something else related to this as well, we've done kind of like one-off food donation opportunities here and there, but I know that FIFA, that's something that they're looking into to have for World Cup. So looking at that more and seeing how we can kind of grow the program there. And then for more of the fan-facing activities, I think that's something kind of like looking more into the future. Wouldn't really say that we have anything like that at the moment, but more to come on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting within this discussion to look at major sporting events that take place, especially since we're talking so much about the World Cup right now. I've been really amazed to see that surprisingly, the last few Super Bowls have been really strong performers when it comes to food waste diversion. In fact, I believe it was Super Bowl 57 that set the record for waste diversion at a Super Bowl, with 92.6% of all waste being diverted from landfill. And I think that you can see that the stadiums that are hosting these events are doing a lot on a routine basis in order to make sure that food waste is ending up where it should. But we also see that during the Super Bowl, they're also bringing in what they call zero waste ambassadors to help participants and fans understand how to actually divert their waste properly, more or less. We see this as, in some ways, a stopgap solution that we can be investing more in infrastructure into innovative projects like what Dina shared with the grinder. That's really cool. But when it comes to these larger events like the World Cup, being able to bring in volunteers to support that process, community members who are really excited about greening these events, I see no reason why to turn down their help. The more the merrier, we say.
Yep. From the BC Place side and aspect of things, and we have with our food and beverage partner, we have another partnership with Le Table de Chef for food donations, so that also helps in reducing the amount of food waste that is generated from the stadium. We've also within our zero waste task force, we've also introduced training for our food and beverage staff on the proper waste management practices to minimize the food waste coming out of the kitchens themselves. And we're also looking at initiatives and looking at how can we change in our menus and the way we serve food to our guests so that we minimize the waste that comes out of that. And we're preparing for a study to go through the practices of BC Place to stand on these minor operational changes that could help in reducing the amount of waste that comes out of the event at the end. That's on the food waste perspective. But fan engagement, we have with our partnership with the teams, we are trying to get some support also from the players. So we're still to go. There are some projects that are being prepared, but this is something in the works at the moment.
I think you touched on a question we actually just got, Rami, is how are you getting players involved in communication of sustainability practices? I don't know, Dina, if you guys have got that far either, or if you're still kind of in the talking phase.
Sorry, I'm just reading through the question really quickly. I know one way, definitely communication that we've been able to launch this year was our sustainability webpage on our website to kind of like give an overview about all of our sustainability programs at the stadium, and just trying to communicate out with fans, whether it's their first time coming to the stadium, you know, if they come every week to a game, and then also engaging with fans in person at in the plaza before events, and just seeing how we can continue to grow the messaging and communication through sponsors and really different initiatives that we can partner with existing or future partners and sponsors to help launch different things.
And then kind of keeping on with you, Dina. This area was recently awarded the LEED Gold certification, and now we're exploring the ISO 20121. So what are some similarities and differences you've seen between the two?
Yeah, definitely. I would say they kind of like complement each other. LEED is more focused on like the building structure and like achieving set building and energy and water targets. And the ISO certification is, you know, the way that ISO is, it's kind of like a great framework for creating like the organization, the venue, the company can kind of set their own like goals and targets. ISO is more focused on the process of like plan, do, check, act. So you can align your lead objectives to your ISO objectives. You can adapt them as you wish. It's really focused on like the process of everything. And I will say too, like the lead policies, whether that be like facilities and renovation, or there's different like lead policies that fall under that certification process. Those can be tied into the ISO certification. And there's different like controlled documents that go along with the ISO 20121 certification, and kind of the upkeep of the version numbers of different documents and things like that. So the lead policies and those updates can kind of be tied into that. At least that's from what we've seen from our experience here. They can kind of tie into each other and help support each other there. Hope that helps.
Thank you. And then Dr. Mo asks, with the resources that you have, what are the difficulties you face in making the World Cup successful? Specifically looking at the different language barriers at the event you may face, and I think this kind of ties into this is an international event, so it's not necessarily always the community that the stadiums more normally see. Rami, do you want to?
And then, in my perspective, I would say yes. To be a the language barriers are there, especially for international events similar to the World Cup. So many guests coming from so many places of the world. But I believe the signage is one of the things that you can rely on with the diagrams that are basically our international to practices, as well as unifying the way the signage goes through all the venues or all the events, and make it easier for them for people to understand. With a community in Vancouver, for example, it's a multicultural community with so many languages that take into place, but signs are mostly graphical, not just words that come up there.
Dina, did you have anything to add?
Sorry. The only thing I would add is I think our team is also looking at using digital signage, being able to maybe have different languages on, so instead of having like 5 different signs or something, you can easily change digital signage in different spaces, whether that be maybe like the menus at the concession stands or things like that. I think they're looking into that to see how that can help as well.
Evan, you did talk, we're going to change events and look even further ahead. You talked about the Paris Host Committee. Any ideas or discussions that you kind of heard for LA and 28, or opinions from fans and local communities regarding those Olympics?
I think that there's a desire to see a lot of the same in terms of that combination of immediate term and long-term sustainability planning. I know that for a community like Los Angeles, there's already this innate desire to see improvements of public transportation. And as we saw in Paris, this can be an opportunity to make that investment at a timely point within the city's planning. We want to see more of that occur. It's something that we could see in a lot of US cities. But especially as we start preparing for the Olympics, it's really going to be essential that the city is ready to receive this influx of visitors, that these stadiums that are going to be at or above capacity compared to where they usually would be are ready to do so. And so having resilient infrastructure to do that is going to be really key. I know that this is something that we look at not only for sports events, but also for environmental events as well. We participate in the annual United Nations Climate Summit, the COP, every year. And this is something that I noticed when I was at COP27 in Egypt, was that a huge portion of the city was actually renovated specifically for that event. And doing so sustainably, of course, is always in our best interest. It's something that can leave the city in a better place than it was to begin with. It's something that I'm hoping that we'll be investing in as we prepare for what's going to be a fairly unique Olympics in the way that it's being held. It's something that should be considered by both the host country itself as well as everybody else participating, both as an athlete and as a fan. What can we do to make that experience as sustainable as possible when it comes to everything from food service to transportation? There are areas for marginal and transformative improvement in those areas. And I hope to see this trend of looking across different sectors of sustainability continuing. We appreciated that Paris didn't just focus on infrastructure, but also on food service, on transportation, on all these issues combined. That's what ends up stacking up to an event that is sustainable and really in the spirit of something like the Olympics, which is about bringing the community globally together. And if we're going to host these events in an unsustainable way, in some ways that flies in the face to what the Olympics are hoping to achieve on a conceptual level. If we want to see these events bring the world community together, it needs to be something that actually supports the world itself as well.
Thanks. We have another for Dina and Rami, and I don't know if you can speak to this, but we'll see. Have there been any expectations or requirements from FIFA that have been the most challenging to meet? And then separately, how often are you in communication with the host committees for planning?
I would say for FIFA requirements, I think the big thing was the lead certification, but we were able to, they gave us, enough notice that we were able to go through the process, and we achieved certification in 2024. And we got gold and eventually want to go for platinum, but that was I think like the big requirement from FIFA's perspective, and yeah, and we're excited that we were able to achieve that and surpass it. Can you remind me the second part there?
Oh, it went away. One moment. um, How often do you communicate with the host committees?
Yes. Pretty frequently. Our host committee, actually, their offices are pretty close to us, so we're able to just kind of like walk over and check in with them. And I actually met with them yesterday. And so yeah, open communication there, especially when it comes to the environmental yearly reports that we send to FIFA, kind of making those updates, and then collaborating on that, and then they'll reach out to the city to get their insight as well, things like that. But yes, open communication with the host committee on our end at least, which is great.
And I would like to echo what Dina was saying, and lead was one of the biggest challenges that FIFA had put on some of the stadiums. Not to say that that there was no sustainability action or sustainability work done in the stadiums before, but it's just getting scrambling around to prepare your documentation, prepare everything for certification. For us was a challenge. On the communication with the host committee, we have monthly meetings. We also meet with the committee on the city level on a regular basis, and we have frequent interactions with the FIFA representatives within Canada as well.
Thank you. And we got a question from Luke. How are stadium or team-based sustainability goals, initiatives, practices influenced by the governing body? So NFL, FIFA, MLB, MLS, USL, practices and messaging. Have you seen leagues starting to push for teams to make improvements in this space rather than relying on more fractional movement? Rami, do you want to kick off?
From my perspective, I believe it's still venue driven. It's not a league driven yet, at least from our side. Not all the teams have the same standards or sustainability attached to their goals and whatnot, but I believe it's the venues that are driving this conversation and driving these efforts as they go in. in the effort to minimize their environmental impact and improving their sustainability practices.
Yeah, as Rami pointed out, I think this is still a nascent area with a lot of room for improvement. But one thing that we saw this Earth Day actually was the MLB celebrating 1 year with their first sustainability partner, WM, that's helping with stadiums in the MLB approaching waste management in particular. So it's great to see that as their first official sustainability partner, we've opened the door towards league-wide collaboration, at least within the MLB. Hopefully we'll see other leagues following suit as well. And again, to Rami's point, this is an area where I think we can see a lot more leadership. Individual facilities and stadiums are doing a really good job. They're showing that this is a really good investment for the teams that are doing this. And when we see the entire league step up, it can have a ripple effect that can be really impactful. It can make a huge difference.
And just to add on, from our perspective here, I know the MLS, they really activate around the greener goals matches. So the couple weeks around in April for Earth Month, I know that's kind of across the league. Different teams will do different things for it, but I think that's a great way that they've been able to kind of come together league-wide for that opportunity. And then for the NFL, as was mentioned previously, they seem to have focused more on the big events such as Super Bowl and draft and all of those big events. And I think that they're working on getting more. We have like an NFL like green team and working to get more involved with the I'll say regular season games and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else I'd also want to add is that when leagues are invested in sustainability, it can lead to what we like to call a healthy form of co-opetition. In the same spirit that these teams are competing on the field, they can also be competing in sustainability as well. Through the league encouraging this behavior and perhaps even ranking it in certain ways. I know that the Green Glove Awards, for instance, is one way in which this has been done in the past. We can create a system in which every team is striving to be the best in the league when it comes to sustainability, and a rising tide raises all ships in that way.
I don't think I see any more questions. Mika, I might pull you in, see if you have anything else that came in through on your end.
No, nothing on my end. I love the conversation that we're having. It's exciting, something that we get asked about a lot. FIFA coming up, other major events coming up. So, we have great examples here from our panelists of how to handle these kind of tricky sustainability goals and accomplishments. So appreciate all of your insight. Appreciate all the people and attendees who submitted questions as well. I thought it was a great discussion.
Yeah. So with that, thank you. All our panelists, especially for all your insights today. It's been a great conversation. To everyone who attended, we appreciate you joining and engaging with our panelists. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to the organizations represented today. I'm going to quickly plug SMA. You can check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We have both webinars and in-person events coming up related to topics, all of stadium operations, not necessarily just sustainability. Guest services, safety, security, all those. Mika talked about before, GSA has their upcoming summit in Miami, June 10th through the 12th. So check out their lineup of sessions and register. Green Sports Day in October. And then just GSA and SMA are always here to help you all. And don't forget to mark your calendars for Earth Day in 2026 on April 22nd.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I can second that. I went to the Stadium Manager Association conference in Palm Springs this year, and it was great. So recommend it for everyone who's interested. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.